Hey guys, Dr. Childs here. Today we're going to be talking about how and why you should consider syncing your workouts to your menstrual cycle. So if you've never heard of this concept before, it's the idea of cycle syncing. And it's actually a fairly good idea for a lot of women. And the reason is simple. When it comes to the medical literature or the fitness industry literature and science, that information is predominantly geared towards men. And I probably don't have to tell you, but men have a different hormone profile than women do, right? Women's hormones, they tend to fluctuate throughout the month, whereas men's, they do fluctuate a little bit, but not quite as much. So if you take that information, if you apply it to yourself as a woman or a female, then you're not going to get the same results that the men get. And that can lead to frustration, that can lead to, a lack of confidence in that sort of industry and what you're doing. It can lead to confusion and so on. So let's talk about cycle syncing, the benefits of cycle syncing, what type of people should consider doing it, and then of course we'll talk about how to actually do it. So I have a lot of good information for you here today. If you don't know me, I'm Dr. Childs. I'm an internist. I specialize in treating patients with thyroid conditions, helping people with hormone imbalances, and of course helping people lose weight. But today is about cycle syncing your workouts. Now this really kind of overlaps between, let me get that off here. It overlaps between the hormones, like hormone balancing, but then also some weight loss as well, because we'll talk about who this is ideal for. And one of those, that group of people would be those who are overweight. So when we talk about cycle syncing, we really need to keep in the back of our minds the sex hormones. So this is estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So as I mentioned before, and I probably don't need to tell you, these hormones fluctuate every single month, or at least associated with the cycle, in women. So certain hormones reach their peak while others go down, and they're constantly fluctuating. They're in tandem with one another, but they're not all peaking at the exact same time. And these hormones impact the amount of energy that you have, the amount of power that you'll feel, and they can also impact how well or how successful the various workouts that you do will be. So if you've had or if you've tried various standard personal training type of exercise routines or whatever, and you haven't had success with those, then cycle syncing might be something that I would consider in your case. So let's talk about the other group of people that this would be ideal for. So one of those would be women who have PCOS. Now, obviously, women who have PCOS, they have issues with hormones, right? That's basically the definition of PCOS. And they have issues with all three of these hormones, but predominantly testosterone. So if you have any sort of issues with these hormones, and by the way, I'd include in here also those with PMS and PMDD, it would be good for you to consider these sort of workouts. Another group of people would be those who are overweight. So if you're struggling to lose weight, if you've tried various workouts and you haven't had success, this would be a good thing to try for you. If you're feeling run down or fatigued more than usual, this would be something for you to try. If you want to improve your sex drive, a lot of women struggle with low libido, and they don't talk about it very much, but it's something that I do hear a lot about when I talk to women. Then that's predominantly related to testosterone and estrogen. So if you can balance your hormones, then you will get some benefit to libido. And then also if you're interested in conception, so if you're just somebody who wants to get your body ready, or if you're looking to conceive in the future, or if you just want that conception to be streamlined and be nice and easy, then this would be something to consider as well, because it's going to put your hormones in balance, which is what leads us to the next one, which would be the benefits. So first, probably the biggest benefit is that it has a balancing effect on estrogen and progesterone. And I would also include in here testosterone. So really what you're doing is you're taking advantage of these, the various fluctuations in hormones, but it can provide a balance to estrogen and progesterone, which will always necessarily affect testosterone as well, because they're all linked together in men and women, but especially in women. If you want to have better success with weight loss, so as I mentioned, if you're struggling to lose weight, doing the standard sort of workouts where every day you're trying to hit high intensity and it's just not sustainable, or some days you really feel like you're dragging, but you get out there, but you don't feel like you did a good workout, that happens quite a bit. In fact, it happens to my wife all the time, which is why we do something similar to this, but I'll talk about that as we get there. So if you want better weight loss, that would be one of the benefits. Another thing would be decrease in Pms symptoms, which kind of goes along with the balancing of estrogen and progesterone and also the PCOS. So you'll see a improvement in sort of anything related to the estrogen progesterone imbalance. So that could be PMS, PMDD, PCOS, etc. Women who use this sort of method, they tend to have better mood, and they also tend to see an increase in their libido or an increase in their sex drive. So hopefully I don't have to convince you very much to try it, but hopefully these benefits are enough to at least pique your interest and get you interested in learning more about it. So let's talk about it. Let's hold this up so you can see it here. So really what I've done here is I've outlined the various phases of the menstrual cycle. Now, I want to point out here that this is the standard 28-day menstrual cycle. Okay, so from day 1 to 28, this is what we're really doing. Now, I realize that many of you listening to this, especially if you have PCOS, right, you're probably not going to be, you're not going to fit into this stock standard 28-day menstrual cycle. Some of you may only have a cycle 3 to 4 times per year, okay? Some of you may have a shortened duration of a menstrual cycle or a longer cycle or so on. So realize that you need to think about this in terms of the spirit of what I'm saying and not try to follow it exactly. So when I mentioned my wife previously, in her case, she doing this has really led her to be more intuitive with her body. So she understands when she feels stronger, when she has more energy, and she just honors those sensations and that feelings, and then she adjusts her workout to compensate on that day. So you can do something similar, but if you don't feel like you're intuitive or quite in tune with your body just yet, then follow this generally to see, and then start noticing and paying attention, and that will help you to make those steps later on. Okay. So going back to this, we have the menstrual cycle, and that's days 1 through 5 in this standard 28-day cycle. And this is when the shedding of the uterus is occurring. This is when the bleeding is happening, and so on. Next up is the follicular phase, and that's days 6 through 14. Different set of hormones are peaking and falling here. Then we have the ovulatory phase, which is shortest, and that's usually days 15 through 17. That's when you're actually ovulating. And when we get to it, this is when you want to take advantage of your testosterone being at its peak here. And then lastly, we have the luteal phase, which is days 18 through 28. And then what happens is we come back up here and we repeat, right? That's why I said it's the standard day 1 through 28 cycle, the standard day 1 through 28 day cycle. But you may not fit into this. You may be a 35-day cycle, 40-day cycle, 60-day cycle, and so on. So just try to follow it, again, in the spirit of how you're feeling and generally what we're going to be discussing here. So first off, in the menstrual cycle or during the menstrual phase, you want to focus on light movement. So really all you want to be doing here is walking. And it might sound counterintuitive to walk, right? How can I lose weight if I'm walking? What you don't want to do is cause extra stress on the body by trying to work out more intensely than your body wants you to. Okay, that's only going to cause a further drag on your adrenals. It's going to slow you down. It's actually going to prevent weight loss. Okay, it's going to make you more likely to gain weight. So there's a very good argument that I make with a lot of patients, and that is less exercise is sometimes a lot better, especially for women. I know it's going to sound crazy, especially if you've never heard about this before, but it is true in many cases, okay? So just walking, and right, we're just talking about the amount of time that you're in that menstrual phase, which is usually just, 1 to 5 days. It could be less, could be a little more, give or take a couple days here, but generally around this time frame. So focus just on light intensity stuff. We'll get into the more intense stuff in just a minute. For phase 2, which is the follicular phase, this is where you want to start picking up the cardio a little bit. So we're talking light to moderate cardio. Specifically, we're talking about running, hiking, and then flow yoga. If you've ever done flow yoga, it actually can get you it can get you sweating quite a bit. I learned the hard way doing that with my wife. So it's actually pretty intense. But we're talking about running, hiking, and flow type yoga. And we're not trying to hit the intensity really, we're not trying to do too intense, but we're trying to get to that light to moderate sort of area there. The ovulatory phase is the shortest period of time, but it's also when you're going to feel the strongest and feel the most powerful. And that's because the testosterone as well as estrogen are both peaking during this time period. So you want to take advantage of this. You should feel very strong. You should pop out of bed. You should have a lot of energy. And this is when you want to focus on doing high intensity interval training or any sort of circuit training. So hit it really hard, spin class, whatever it is, whatever you like to do. But you feel free to ramp up the intensity as high as your body can basically take. Now, the downside is you only get a couple days of this, right? So in this example, it's days 15 through 17. So you got 2 to 3 days there. But you can take advantage of it and you will feel good, you will feel strong, you will feel powerful. So use that to your advantage. Then lastly, we have the luteal phase, which is a pretty long period of time. It's about 10 to 11 days, and that's days 18 through 28. Now, again, we're going to go back to sort of the light to moderate. But here, I want you to focus on more restorative type movements. So instead of doing the running and hiking, we want to do things like yoga, Pilates, and then even strength training. And by strength training, I'm talking about lifting weights. Now, naturally, there are different ways that you can do this to increase the intensity. So I don't want you to go into the high intensity range, but I do think naturally when you do strength training, it's going to be a little bit lower intensity, so light to moderate. And you could do strength training, by the way, at any point throughout this cycle. So if you want to do even in the menstrual phase, if you feel like walking isn't enough, you can do the strength training as well. Strength training is always beneficial to women because it helps improve muscle mass, it helps naturally improve testosterone, and helps improve metabolism. So this is one that can be added pretty much throughout wherever you are. But during the ovulatory phase, when your testosterone peaks, that's when you really want to take advantage of the energy and the power that you're feeling. So in a nutshell, this is really what cycle syncing is. Now, again, you will have to probably tweak this a little bit. You'll have to adjust it to your own cycle because the chances of you having the actual stock standard 28-day cycle is probably not very high, right? Especially if you have PCOS or hormone imbalances or low sex drive, or if you're overweight, etc. But follow it as closely as you can. Just pay attention. Try to get in tune with your body. See how you feel every single day and what time of day you have more energy. Don't think that you just have to work out every morning or every night or whatever it is. Pay attention to your body, be intuitive about it, and work out based off the intensity that you feel that your body can handle that day and at that time of day as well. And as you do this, I think you'll find that you get a lot better results than the standard advice that you would get from personal trainers that are more geared towards men who have a testosterone level, which is just sort of like this, as opposed to like women who can, go like that throughout the month. So if you have any questions about this, leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. If you've done this before, I want to hear about it. What type of improvement did you see, if any? How did you feel when you were doing this? Leave your comment and experience below as well, because that'll help other people so that they can see how it worked for other people. Otherwise, that's all I have for you guys today, and I will see you in the next one.